My name is Mike. I'm the owner of CrossFit Coconut Grove. Some of you have had the opportunity to choke me out on BJJ, and there I'm just a spazzy white belt, as I've been called several times. So I'm glad that you guys are here in our house. Most of you are looking for either aesthetics or performance, or both, how to increase your performance or how to aesthetically look better, which is great. It also, both of those also help you out with your health. So this is what kind of the benefits of dieting go that way, which Eric hates that word here. Been in business for 15 years. I dabble in some online programming. Besides that, I'm a firefighter. I've been doing it for 19 years. I help those boys out, por arribita, because a lot of firefighters are stubborn and they don't listen. But although I enjoy training, nutrition is one of my passions. I am not licensed or certified like the man to my right here, but it's one of the things that I really dabble into and help as many people as I can with this. I've gotten a lot of questions at BJJ about nutrition. So this is where it prompted, like, let's host a nutrition lecture for our BJJ guys, and then let's include some of our CrossFitters that are looking to reach some of their goals as well, okay? I'm gonna let Eric take over and give us a little bio about himself and where he's been and what he's doing.
Awesome, thanks, Mike. My name is Eric Bustillo. Happy to see you all here. In case you didn't know, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, right? That's what I tell the classes when I coach them in CrossFit. I've been a dietitian for over a decade. Been involved in the industry for a little longer than that. I have my master's in applied exercise science and sports nutrition, registered dietitian. I'm a fellow and former vice president of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. I'm a certified strength coach, level 2 CrossFit coach, and personal trainer as well. And I've had the pleasure of working with athletes of all kinds. Tactical athletes, police, fire, military, former military. Like, I do work with some people that, like, they're the sweetest individuals when you're talking with them, but it's like deep down, I know, like, they could kill me in the snap of a finger, like special forces people, which is pretty cool. Some of you BJJ folks are probably that, so I won't mess with any of you. I won't make fun of you guys. I'll make fun of the CrossFit people. And I've worked with NFL football players, Major League Baseball players, WNBA, golf, tennis, CrossFit. But then I've also, on the other end of the spectrum, I've had the opportunity to help people with medical nutrition therapy. So treatment of illness and disease, diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, cancer, Parkinson's, you name it, I've probably seen it, gastrointestinal things as well. And hopefully you guys have some questions that you'll feel comfortable asking. Please don't be shy. Really, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask, because there's plenty of knowledge and information just from the three of us up here that we're willing to help out with. So that's just a quick elevator speech on a little bit of my background. So thank you guys for being here.
Which is impressive, as always. Yeah. So my name's Rob. I'm a director at the National Council on Strength and Fitness. It's an online certification company. So mainly what I do is I teach people how to be better personal trainers and better strength coaches. My background is a master's in strength and conditioning from University of Miami. I worked with the football team. Those were some tough days. That was about over 10 years ago. Bad memories. Great memories, though. At the same time with that, if you follow UM football at all. And really, I've known Mike 12 years, 13 years.
Easy,
yeah. Walked into his gym with a yellow bike and a pink backpack, and we hit it off right away. And I've helped him build his programming acumen, his gyms over the years, and we've stayed in touch. And we really love to just bounce ideas back and forth on each other on how to help people be fitter, be healthier, whether it is strength and conditioning, working with athletes, or individuals just trying to make everyone be a better them.
Beautiful. Thank you. You know that saying, never be the smartest person in the room? I fit that bill when I'm with these two guys. We host a podcast called Fitness Fiasco. There's short little rants, 10 minutes to hour-long videos there and podcasts there. Morning, guys. So check that out. You could subscribe, like, the whole nine. You guys know how it works. We have little videos online, and we also have everything on Spotify, right? Spotify, everything you listen to podcasts.
Any of the main podcast platforms, hosting services, you can find us, Fitness Fiasco.
Awesome.
Teal microphone is the logo.
Teal microphone. Love it. All right, so here's the way that this is going to work. We're going to do just kind of like a broad general scope of nutrition, and then we're going to discuss, if you have any questions during that time, because what's going to happen is some questions will pop into your head about what Rob or Eric is talking about. Please text that phone number right there. That's Rob's phone number.
My number. I don't think I have any of your numbers except for Jasenia. So that means it's anonymous, right? So you can be whatever question you want. If you want to complain about the temperature in here, that would also be the point where if we start getting a bunch of texts saying it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, we know that it's time to modulate the temperature in here a little bit. So yeah, that's my number. Any questions, we'll be able to answer them that way. And if you want to raise your hand, by all means, raise your hand. But that's a good way to do it.
We'll get into supplementation. We'll get into pre and post training and competition. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the training aspect of it, the fitness side of it. And then we'll get into Q&A. I have about 21 questions here from the survey that we sent out. We're going to skim through those if we didn't answer them during the actual lecture. And then, like I said, and Rob said, you could text your questions specific to what those, what it is, depending on the nutrition or the fitness side, and then we'll answer at the very end. Like Eric said, there's no stupid questions. There's a lot of moments that we glance over things. Let's say Rob said, or Eric says something about, protein or amino acids, and you don't even know what a protein is. Text that number. Hey guys, what is a protein? Can you describe a few protein sources? And we'll circle back to that question and we'll answer it because we don't want to leave anybody dumbfounded. We also want to give you guys actionable steps, especially you competitors that are walking out of here and are looking to either cut weight or gain some weight. Those are the things. We just don't want to give you a broad scope. We want to try to answer all your questions, and we want to finish by noon because there's a huge Dolphin games, and we'll hopefully make it. Cool? All right, Eric, do you want to get going with this?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's do it. Hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to move around, walk around. I don't do well just kind of sitting down. If you also saw, I just had some cafecito, so it's not going to be easy to just sit. So first off, when we talk about nutrition, if I were to ask you all a question about nutrition, I'm curious to hear what you would say. Why do you eat? Fuel. That's probably the most biologically, physiologically correct answer because we need it for sustenance, right? Why else do you eat?
Comfort.
Comfort. That's a big one too, right? A lot of times we don't even think about why we're eating what we're eating. Why else do we eat? What's that? Because you're bored, right? A lot of times you're not even hungry, you're just bored. Got to think about it, right? Mindfulness. Like I tell a lot of my tactical athletes, the bottom line up front of some of the things that I talk about when it comes to nutrition is variety on your plate, mindfulness around what you're eating and why you're eating, and moderation. Earlier I was joking around about there's no bad foods or anything along those lines. Why else do you eat?
To do CrossFit.
To what? To do CrossFit. Well, that goes into the fuel category, right? But yes, for sure. To make sure that our performance is good and up there. But how about because it tastes good, right? Who wants to eat something that tastes bad? Just by a show of hands. Nobody, right? We want to enjoy what we're consuming. So nutrition is very important, obviously, for all the reasons that we've mentioned, among many other things. Now, when I say the word nutrition, diet, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Atkins.
Atkins.
Salad.
Salad.
Carbs.
Carbs.
Keto.
Keto. Paleo. Protein. Now see, these are all things that maybe in some way, shape, or form is leading us to think about being on a diet, right? Because when you think about nutrition, I think a lot of times we view it through this lens of weight loss or fat loss or something along those lines, right? But what else is nutrition important for? I mean, we just said a bunch of different reasons, really, right? But without proper nutrition, you're not going to be able to perform well, right? So like Mike was saying, some folks are here to understand either about physique nutrition or performance nutrition. I can tell you this, they are not one and the same. Performance nutrition and physique nutrition are not the same. If your goal is to perform a certain way, but you're stuck on having a six-pack because you think that that's important, I'm going to ask you, what's more important? The performance or having a six-pack? Because I can tell you, having a six-pack does not mean that you're going to be better in CrossFit, in BJJ, or in anything, right? We automatically assume that because someone looks a certain way, that they are extremely fit. I'll tell you, I've seen plenty of skinny people with cancer and HIV/AIDS. And that's an extreme example, but just food for thought, right? I've also seen some very athletic 315-pound offensive linemen. So, do with that as you will. So it's not based on what you look like. So getting that out of the way, I want to go over a few basics or fundamentals for nutrition. Ultimately, nutrition is made up of macronutrients and micronutrients. How many people have heard the term macronutrients or macros before, just by a show of hands? All right, so majority of people. So macronutrients are the foods that give us calories, right? That's going to be your protein, your carb, and your fats. Alcohol also falls into that category. But ideally we'll be consuming alcohol on a very minimal basis, and I can go into detail on that if anyone cares to understand why alcohol is bad for you. But just thinking about macronutrients in general, I want you guys to understand the math behind it, right? Because a lot of times if we are thinking about either performance or something like weight, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, or just maintenance, there is a math behind all of this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use the whiteboard just to kind of give you guys something to look at here. 1 gram, 1 gram, 1 gram. Fat, protein, and carb. So we eat fat, protein, and carbohydrate whenever we're eating food, right? Now the math behind this is, so the math is this. For every 1 gram of fat that you're consuming, you're getting 9 calories, right? So if I were to ask you guys, you just had a meal purely of 20 grams of fat. How many calories did you get there? 20 times 9.
Use your phone.
180 calories, right? So now, if you got 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carbohydrate, you're getting 4 calories for every gram, okay? Now again, this is the mathematical side of all of this. So if you had 20 grams of just pure protein, how many calories are you getting there? 20 times 4. 80, right? So 80 calories. 80 calories for 20 grams of protein, 180 calories for 20 grams of fat. Is one better than the other? What's the answer? It depends, right? It's not really, one is not better or worse. In fact, we need these nutrients, and for different reasons, and I'm going to go into that now. But I wanted you guys to have an understanding of these basics, right? This is like simple math that we can kind of figure out. Now, why is this important? As an athlete, and even just as an individual who maybe is being mindful of their weight, this is going to be important. Because guess what? You have a basal metabolic rate. Who wants to explain what that is? Anyone want to take a shot? Basal metabolic rate, it's the minimal amount of calories that your body needs to basically keep you alive. Just to keep the lights on. That's your basal metabolic rate. So there is a metabolic cost to keeping us alive. Because guess what? Right now, you're listening to this guy with nice hair just talk about a bunch of different things, right? And it's only because Mike is wearing a hat. He'd be the guy with nice hair if the hat wasn't on. So your body's not thinking about, well, you're not thinking about this, but your body's keeping you alive, right? Because guess what? This has to keep on beating. Your lungs have to keep on breathing. Your kidneys and your liver are filtering things out. Your brain also has, our brain is like 2% of our body weight, but it's like 20% of our metabolic expenditure, right? So there are things going on that we don't have to think about, but they're happening in our body. That's your basal metabolic rate. So there's a minimum, right? The minimal cost of us being alive is your basal metabolic rate. Then there's everything else, right? Eating has a certain metabolic cost to it, right? Because in order to process these foods, it's going to burn X amount of calories. If you're working out and training, that's also going to go ahead and burn calories as well. So for us to be mindful of how much we're consuming is going to be important for performance and or for physique, right? And when I say physique, I'm referencing either muscle gain, weight maintenance, or fat loss. You won't oftentimes hear me say weight loss because by a show of hands, how many people want to lose muscle? Okay, nobody, right? So when we're losing weight, ideally we're going to retain muscle as best as we possibly can. When we're training, we're hopefully going to retain muscle. We want to do what we can to not lose muscle as best as possible, right? That's why going on these crash diets is not the best thing. In weight cut sports, it's also not the best way to approach it the way that some people have historically done it, right? It could be quite dangerous for many different reasons, kidneys and whatnot, but also how much muscle are we going to lose? And if you are in a weight cut sport, I think part of that sport is also understanding like there's more than likely going to be some muscle lost, but if we can preserve it, then ideally we would. So getting back to the number of calories and all of that, having a good understanding, because if you are burning 2,000 calories in a day, and that's just a random number, everyone is burning a different amount, then we want to make sure that you're at least consuming 2,000 calories if your goal is just to kind of maintain. Now, if you want to lose weight, we got to create a deficit. If you want to gain, we got to create a surplus. It's simple math, right? Now, carbohydrates, probably the most misunderstood macronutrient in the world because carbs are the devil, or at least they've become that. And in reality, they're not. Now, I will say this. Oh, if you're on social media, follow me on social media at Eric Bustillo. Just a little shameless plug. I want you to be mindful of what you follow when it comes to social media and the advice there. Has anyone here ever heard the term confirmation bias before? Just by a show of hands. We got 1, 2, so a few. Confirmation bias is essentially seeking things that will confirm the things that we want to believe that are true. So if you're someone who is absolutely in love with the ketogenic diet because it made a huge difference for you, you're more than likely going to seek out information and accounts that will confirm the fact that keto is the best thing ever to exist, right? Same thing goes for vegans, right? Those are like the two extremes when it comes to the diet community. Full-on vegan, full-on keto, or now carnivore has kind of like taken over that space a little bit. So be mindful of the things that we follow on social media. Carbohydrates are important for energy, but hear what I'm about to say. We don't technically need to eat carbs to survive, right? So now a keto warrior is going to be like, oh, there it is. You know, you don't need carbs to survive, then that's it, just eliminate them. But no, that's not the right way to kind of think about it. We still need carbohydrates, but our body can actually produce carbohydrate from fat and protein. So it can create those carbs that our body needs if we're not eating them. But would that be optimal for our performance? Is anybody here familiar with the 3 metabolic pathways by any chance? The 3 energy systems? You want to try to explain or not? Not really.
Gluconeogenesis does the protein to carbs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glycolysis is the carb part.
Yep.
Just on the third.
Okay, so you have at the most basic, like at 10 seconds of work, you have that phosphagen, that phosphocreatine system, right? It's anaerobic. You don't need a lot of oxygen, right? And I promise you I'm getting to a point with this. The reason I'm sharing this is so you can understand why nutrition is important for performance. So doing 10 seconds worth of, I don't know, bench press or a fast sprint, something along those lines, is not going to require a whole lot of energy for a long period of time. It's only 8, 10, maybe 15 seconds, right? So at a substrate level, cellular-wise, your body's using something called phosphocreatine. Cool. Now, as the workout gets a little bit more intense, I shouldn't say more intense, as it gets a little bit longer, but the intensity stays relatively high, we jump into that glycolytic energy system, which means our body's going to start using carbohydrates for fuel. This is where carbs are important for your performance. And that starts somewhere north of a minute. A minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes or so, 6 minutes-ish, right around there is when we're starting to use a little more carbohydrate for fuel. As that workout gets a little bit longer, the intensity goes down, right? How many people have used these Echo bikes before? Just by a show of hands. Okay. So there's a love-hate relationship, maybe erring on the side of hate a little bit more with that bike. If I were to ask you 5 calories on the bike, I think that's pretty straightforward. You knock that out in, 10 seconds, right? Maybe, something along those lines. Now, if I say, we're going to do some intervals where you're getting on that bike, and you're going to go ahead and knock out 20 calories, and then doing as many squats as you can in the remaining time of 2 minutes, right? But then you're going to rest for a couple of minutes. But then we're going to get back on. We're going, we're resting. We're going, we're resting. We're going to tap into that glycolytic energy system. So those carbs are going to help fuel your training. But now if I tell you, hop on the Echo bike and give me as many calories as you can in 60 minutes, right? In 1 hour. That's going to look very different from a 5-calorie sprint, 20 calories and then squats in intervals of 2 minutes, and then 60 minutes on there, right? The 60 minutes, you're going to be chilling. And that's the third energy system, which is the oxidative or the aerobic energy system. Our body starts using more fat for fuel there. But keep this in mind. Just because the body uses more fat for fuel doing some type of training doesn't mean that you're going to start shedding fat. That still comes down to the calories. We're talking at a cellular level what we're using for fuel, right? And that's where our nutrition becomes very important. So carbs help with energy. Protein is important for muscle, right? That's usually what we think about when we hear protein. We think muscle mass. But only 10% of the protein that we're consuming goes to our muscles. Where does that other 90% go? Anyone want to take a guess? Was that? It does. So the protein is going to go to your immune system for production of enzymes in the body and transporting nutrients. These are things that we don't think about because we just think I got to get protein because of my muscles. And that 10% is extremely important, right? But that's what protein is important for. But guess what? Guess what's going to get affected if we're not having an adequate amount of carbohydrates? Our protein. Because then gluconeogenesis. If we don't have enough carbohydrates, our body's going to use that protein to create carbohydrates. That's the last thing we want protein to do. We don't want protein as an energy source. We want protein for our muscles, for our thighs, for the rest of the things that our body's going to need that protein for, right? So we want to make sure we're at least hitting the minimal amount of carbohydrate, which is going to vary depending on people.
I'm going to stop you for a quick second there. You're talking about using protein as an energy source. Now, are you referring to the protein that you're eating, or is there also the potential in that stage to break down the protein that's in your body already? You're breaking down muscle mass.
Yeah, for sure. So we can start tapping into our muscle mass, which we don't want to do either, right? Listen, we're all aging, right? And that's a wonderful thing. Aging is a blessing. Anyone who says otherwise, I mean, consider the alternative, right? So as we age, we're going to experience something called sarcopenia, which is natural muscle loss through aging. What do you guys use your muscles for?
Everything.
Like what? Are you using your muscles right now, though, sitting down?
Yeah.
For sure, something has to keep you up. If you didn't have muscles in your neck, nothing's going to support your spine. Internal decapitation or something along those lines. You know what I mean? Obviously, that's an extreme example, but for literally everything. The muscles are in your heart, your lungs are breathing, all those things. But guess what? You get down and get up from the toilet, hopefully every day, right? Hopefully there's regular bowel movements, or if you sit to urinate, then that works too, right? If you're taking a trip and you got to put that thing overhead, you're using